Welcome back to the Armchair Generals, where we are covering the Imperial factions in our faction breakdown series. We are going to start this segment off with the Assassins. The Imperial Assassins have four very specific schools: the Vindicare, the Culexus, the Calidus, and the Eversor. I apologize for that pause there. The Eversor are melee berserkers. Sort of. They use combat stims and chemical concoctions, so to speak, to boost their melee ability. And you send them after a squad of guys, and generally they slice and dice that squad of guys.
And make Julian fries.
Calidus assassins are another melee assassin. You tend to send them in after character types. They do a lot of damage, but they are very fragile as well. So it's kind of a glass cannon sort of ordeal.
But they have a cool ability where they get to hide within an enemy unit, and you can pop them out during the game.
Yes. And then you have the Vindicare, which are snipers. They sit way off in the battlefield, and they tag characters, squad leaders, things like that, heavy weapon troopers. You send them after individual models, and, well, not send them after, they snipe from afar. And then you have Culexus assassins, which are anti-psyker assassins. They help with blocking psychic abilities of the enemy, and they excel in taking down enemy psychers.
Yeah, I really have always kind of dug the literature, surrounding the different assassin temples. But I've always personally seen them more of a attachment to another force, more so than their own force. I mean, I guess technically you can take them that way, but I find they more augment a specific deficit in your particular Imperial army rather than stand alone and try and fight their own war.
Yeah, you take them with a specific purpose in mind to kind of fill a niche that's not filled by another unit within your army.
Sure.
Space Marines don't have a whole lot of, sniper type units. They have the Eliminators.
And scouts, right? That's about it.
Can scouts?
Yeah,
or sniper rifles.
Scouts with sniper rifles.
They can ignore lookouts, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, never mind.
Although I do believe the Vindicare assassins are their sniper rifles have an AP factor that the scout sniper rifles
their
don't.
sniper rifles are really good. A funny story, back in 6th edition, I had an Evosword assassin pop up next to an enemy unit. They were, remember Skyfire turrets where you could buy one for your army and set it up and you could shoot enemy planes with it? She popped up next to him, commandeered the turret, and actually shot the unit with their own turret. It was hilarious.
That's pretty good.
That was an Eversor, or was that a Calidus?
I'm sorry, the Calidus, the one who can sneak up with people. That's the Calidus, yeah.
Yeah. I made good use of an Eversor back in 3rd and 4th edition quite a bit. People didn't expect it in my Dark Angel army.
Yeah, I think they're a really good augment to Imperial Guard, actually, Eversor, because it tends to be one of their major weaknesses is hand-to-hand combat, and except for in certain units that are not the fastest across the board. So putting an Eversor in there to pop up where your enemy doesn't expect it and assassinate a key squad is pretty nice little augment for them.
So next up, we do have the Adeptus Custodes and the Sisters of Silence. Nova, do you want to take us away on that?
The Praetorian Guard of the Emperor himself. So the Adeptus Custodes will always number 10,000. Even when some are killed in the line of duty, they just have always some. These champions of humanity are above a Space Marine to a Space Marine being above a human. They are all taken from birth. They are children. They are whisked away into the Emperor's lab, and they are in the process of what you would maybe make 200 Space Marines, you can make one Adeptus Custodes. Is just how powerful individually they are. In several Horus Heresy novels, you have the Traitor Legions are watching the Custodes to see how they fight, and they would, because they're trying to beat them, but they would say, the Space Marines fight like a wolf pack, and the Custodes fight like a lion. They're each an individual warrior. They don't really like fight in sync together. It's more like each creates a pocket of the battlefield around themselves, and are just dominating it. Like one-on-one, they would trash any Space Marine, just hands down.
Isn't there even a stratagem that represents that? It breaks the squad into individual characters.
Yeah. So you could have a squad of 10 dudes play the stratagem, and from the rest of the game on, they all count as a squad of 1, which is really nice when you want to go jump on a ton of objectives. If you thought the Space Marines were an elite army, the Custodes are even a leader. You will probably have one of these smallest model count armies in the game, and each one is the equivalent to other armies' special characters with their wounds, their stats, their rules.
I think the Custodes list that I've put together for what I want to collect, I think it numbers 22 models.
Yeah, their armies are definitely be small. But luckily now in 9th edition, with a lot more emphasis on objectives, your Custodes can go sit on the objectives and basically just do that "come at me, bro" hand sign.
Yeah. And kind of break down what we mean by stratagem there for you newer players that are not familiar with the game yet. Stratagem is basically like a special power that you can activate that's specific to your army. You get a certain number of command points as you build your army, and you can utilize those to activate stratagems. They cost various numbers of command points so that you can you have a budget. You have a total number of command points that you receive with the army build. Back to you there, Nova Star. Sorry.
Right. And then a new addition to the army is the Sisters of Silence. They are an order of pariahs. They all have a unique gene that makes them blanks in the warp, so they are unaffected by psychic powers, meaning you cannot cast them, friend or foe, which is really nice when you have some psychic powers that say you have to cast the nearest unit, because they'll still count as an enemy unit that you have to cast at. They'll just be unaffected. So you can use them to shield your other units.
So they're completely immune to psychic powers?
100% immune to psychic powers.
Wow.
So even if you have the Demon Primarch Magnus of the Thousand Suns, who we'll go over in a future episode, use his Kamehameha wave at the Sisters of Silence, it will just dissipate off rain like an umbrella.
Wow. That's pretty powerful ability. I'm eager to see how that changes the meta of the game overall, because that's something everybody will have to take into consideration as they choose which psychic powers and psychers they want to use.
Especially with the fact, too, that they put them into the Custodes, so now the Custodes have a source of cheaper bodies and, just a cheaper model. Their armies will be bigger, and you won't be able to have these sister squads protecting the Custodes, because the Custodes are very vulnerable to psychic powers.
Yeah.
It's one of the key ways to beat them.
Yeah.
And in the lore and the fluff, they always work together. They're like the peanut butter and jelly. They're called the Emperor's Talons.
And I can see them being weak to psychic powers in that sense, because a lot of psychic powers put mortal wounds on the target, and Custodes have fantastic armor. They have fantastic invulnerable saves, but your saves mean nothing against mortal wounds. Mortal wounds just stack onto your guy, and your standard Custodes has 3 wounds. So 3 mortal wounds and down they go, and they're a 45, 50-point model somewhere in there.
Sometimes a little higher, depending on which unit you're talking about.
Well, I mean, that Sisters of Battle, that Sisters of Silence edition sounds like it's actually really going to enhance the Custodes.
Agreed.
A lot.
Well, El Scotcha, do you want to talk about the Inquisition and the Inquisitors?
Absolutely. This is a really fun faction that has seen various additions now with us. They're been around in the literature for a long time. Very powerful individually. The Imperial Inquisitors are basically what you would think of as, the Inquisition. I mean, take like the Spanish Inquisition from actual history, and then give it them unlimited power and the power to literally demand and receive the service of anybody in the Imperium for
Oh,
their needs.
the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, literally, they can walk up to a Space Marine chapter master and say, "Hey, I need you to give me Marines to go fight this bad thing."
The
And
chapter masters can say no. They usually don't.
they usually have to have a pretty good reason to say no.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you draw the attention of the Inquisition.
Exactly.
And only a few chapters that are just complete BAs like the Space Wolves can just
Yep.
shrug it off and say, no, we're not going to help you.
Yeah.
Space Wolves, the Blood Angels, and the Dark Angels kind of
Yeah.
tell the Inquisition to mind their business.
The Ultramarines would just say, okay, how can we help you?
You choose. So I think the Inquisitors are another faction that really benefits from being an addition to uh, the to your force as a supplement. Their command models typically they're considered like an HQ, and they have a range of very powerful psychic powers, very powerful war gear, and they can go to toe with a lot of very strong models in the game, and give you a chance against something that you might not be very well suited to fight otherwise.
Yeah, I'll be including a Ordo Xenos Inquisitor in my Death Watch Crusade Force, since they work hand in hand together.
And for our final faction, I'll hand it back over to Nova Star to discuss the Imperial Knights.
The Imperial Knights. So the Rock'em Sock'em robots of the Imperium. If, I think I actually said earlier that Custodes would be the smallest army. Imperial Knights takes that cake. Each model is a Lord of War, which is considered a huge, gigantic either monster or vehicle on the battlefield. Each one is a boatload of points, clocking in at 500 to 600 plus easily. So if you've ever seen Gundam, Escaflowne, Robot Jocks, Mech Warrior, imagine that on the 40K battlefield. Each one is part of a Knight House, whether it be they're sworn to the Imperium or the Mechanicum. There's some sinister ones we'll be talking about in a future episode as well. And each pilot is a person who has a bond with the machine. They are sat into the control cockpit. They literally jack into the machine Matrix style, and all the pilots from the past, almost kind of like Avatar the cartoon, will actually talk to the pilot and give them advice. And if they go nuts, well, they obviously weren't worthy of piloting the Knight. If they can control it, then they become one of the most dangerous weapons in the Imperial arsenal.
Yeah. And there's three major size categorizations for knights. You have some really big knights, some medium-sized knights, and some really small knights. I apologize. Go ahead, Crash.
Oh, no, I was just specifying the Knights Dominus, the regular Knights.
Yeah, you have the Knights Dominus, you have the normal Knight chassis, and then you have the Armiger class. Those would be mainly the squires or the footmen of the bigger knights.
Yeah. I have a few of the Armigers. They're pretty fun to add into your force. They're a little less expensive than the regular knights, points-wise.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Warhounds to the larger knights, or the larger Titans.
Yes.
You can get about 3 Armigers per knight chassis.
Yeah.
And I mean, the first time I saw one on the battlefield, it was a little bit terrifying.
They definitely have a sense of menace and dread because, I mean, you have to deal with it. It's this threat that's on the field, and they make themselves known. They all shoot well. They all fight well. And you expect them to. You're paying a premium price for them.
Yeah, there's no
Granted,
ignoring them.
you can build an army that will just beat them 2 ways to Sunday, and you'll just utterly destroy them. But then, if you're doing like say an all-comers list or something like that, they're definitely much more harder to fight. Where you're going to want to defeat the knights mainly is in the objectives, because they're only going to have 3 to 6 units total. They can't grab all the objectives. So they don't play that
The
game
ones
very
they're
well.
on, they're hard to dislodge.
That is true.
So would you say the knights are more of a kill 'em all list?
Knights are definitely, as they play right now, more of a kill 'em all list. They're kind of like big bullies. They will push their weight around the battlefield.
Yeah.
And by kill 'em all, we mean a list that is designed to wipe your enemy's army off the field.
Yeah.
Past editions of 40K played a lot more into just slugging it out with your opponent's army. Whoever kills the other army wins. In more recent editions of 40K, it's moved more and more towards objective-based missions. The ITC did a lot for that, and 9th edition has moved very heavily into that, where the missions are objective-based. Killing the enemy may not achieve what you needed to on the battlefield. Maybe you needed to capture a banner, communications relay, whatever have you. So even if they kill your whole army, you got that communication off planet that you needed that'll summon reinforcements. So even though you lost the battle, you won the war, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And a kill 'em all list is just designed to wipe your enemy off the field and not really play to the objectives.
And if you're playing a friendly game, it's definitely a nice heads up to let your opponent know if you're going to be playing tonight.
Yes. Yeah. I actually
now-
got surprised by Crash that way one time and got a lucky bolter shot that killed his knight almost at the end of the game.
I played a buddy's Tau once where my knight charged his battle suits, overwatched it, took it down to 1 wound. I attacked. His drone soaked up every single hit, and then a single battle suit kicked my knight in the face and killed it.
Mine
tears.
was
Tears.
a single Marine from a squad didn't have another target really to shoot at. So El Scaccio said, you know what? I'm going to throw that bolter guy into the knight. And I looked at him funny because a single bolter to a knight. But the knight had 1 remaining wound. Well, the bolter, of course, hit, of course, wounded, and I, of course, failed my save. My knight then detonated, taking about 500 points worth of stuff with it.
That's how they go, don't they?
The knight itself, I think at the time, was 425, 450 points with the equipment it had, and then it took another 500 points with it. It took half my army with it when it went up.
So a 0-point bolter took out 900-ish points of army.
Yes. I was playing my AdMech at the time, and he had a ton of stuff around his feet because I was busy pushing to each side of the battlefield.
Temple or whatever that was in the middle.
The knight had stomped up to the temple that was in the middle, and he was holding it against all comers. And the AdMech were moving in behind him and then moving to the sides because I had been blocked in my movement by El Scaccio's flying dumpster, which is what I call the Stormfang gunship or Stormwolf gunship, flying dumpster. And it had blocked my movement on one side, and until I cleared it, my army was stuck behind my knight because he blocked my movement on the left and on the right. So everything was stuck right there as I tried to clear his blocking units. And then knight detonated and took over 500 points with it.
Yeah.
I once had Ulrich the Slayer lock down an enemy knight, and I didn't do anything to it, but I kept passing my involves and prevented him from moving around these ruins to get to an objective.
So I want to kind of not really preface, but mention here that Crash has won awards for his horrible luck with dice, by the way. In case you guys didn't catch that in our little introduction to us video, he actually has it on paper and is acknowledged by people across the United States for his horrible dice rolls.
I've gotten used to losing. When I play, I tend to take armies that are a little more competitive. Even in a casual game, I'll build an army that's more competitive. And if I'm playing a newer opponent, I kind of have to let them know, just don't worry, my dice rolls will make up for it.
Yes, because they
I might be playing a tournament level army, my dice rolls are not tournament level dice rolls.
Yeah. Whereas Novastar has the exact opposite issue.
Oh, I've got to water my list down.
But I mean, I mean, Nova's a more competitive player. You know, I tend to fall in between, and that may be because my dice rolls are terrible, and so I've just gotten used to losing. That might be why I've kind of fallen in between the more casual and the more competitive play.
And nights are super duper fun. I mean, the Las Vegas Open, which is a giant Warhammer 40K convention in Vegas every year, where you will have thousands of Warhammer players from all stripes show up, play games, and have fun. I started an event called the Night Joust, where it was only nights on nights, and everyone was having a great time, usually having a bunch of adult beverages. It's at the end of the night, so everyone's already played their main tournament games or narrative event games, and it was just basically rock'em sock'em robots with your 40K models. It's amazing. So nights can be super duper fun. They're just awesome, fun units.
Bringing a knight to the field can be a lot of fun. I know when I do field my knight, it's a lot of fun to put it down on the battlefield, and they do tend to, you know, hold their own points wise. You know, you might invest a quarter of your army in a knight, but it's going to do and take the amount of damage that, you know, a quarter of your army would.
Yeah.
And then you can build a huge narrative around your knight.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have a bunch of knights from House Raven, which is a Mechanicum household, but I haven't done their bases yet because I'm going to be making a display board that's akin to the opening, I think it's the opening scenes of Apocalypse Now, where the Hueys are flying into Flight of the Valkyries. They're going to be walking in from the ocean onto a beach, and they're just going to be blowing up this Kroot village.
Why Kroot? Cool. Why Kroot?
Because why not?
Because I see Kroot having mutt hoods.
Jungle Village. Anyhow, no, and actually, for any of you that are interested in painting something with heraldry, or bringing in a flair, you know, from European history, where every knight in your army could, in theory, have different heraldry. They don't even have to be related to each other by house or anything like that. So it's a really fun army from that aspect too. And they are super powerful, and the only army I know of in 40K that has harpoons.
And then, like I said too, with the narrative, like I'm building a Chaos Knight. Yes, there are evil spiky versions, which we'll talk about in another show. And on his legs, I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I'm going to try to get there to be a bunch of bloody handprints from the cultists, as if that's how they're worshiping, like this knight as an effigy. And the knight could care less. He's just plodding through and walking through. And like, I don't give a two shoots about y'all. And they're like, nice, look at us.
With them being bigger models, though, from a modeling and painting aspect, you can do a lot more with them. Like, you know, you can have like the bloody handprints from the cultists. You can have the heraldry. You can do a lot more with the painting. You've got a much bigger canvas. You can do a lot more with the modeling. You've got same thing, a much bigger canvas to work on. Because it can be difficult to do, you know, more fancy modeling on smaller models at times if you're not, you know, experienced, or, you know, like me, you have really bad eyesight. You know, I have a hard time doing very fine detail with green stuff and sculpting, but it's much easier for me to do larger pieces. And, you know, and painting wise, I just have to take my time when I paint. But you can do a lot with knights.
You can really go hog wild and just make them like this centerpiece model of your collection.
Which almost makes me wonder why El Scaccio doesn't have a knight army, since he loves to do all kinds of crazy conversions with his models.
Mostly it's the expense, because they are actually probably the most expensive army to build in 40K.
That is false. They cost as much as any other army. You just get 4 models as opposed to
okay, 100. That's true. That's true.
I mean, yes, I was sitting here thinking, I mean, they are not a cheap model, but you're probably only going to have 3 to 5 medium-sized knights, you know, 3 if you have mixed in other, you know, knights like a Dominus or some Armigers, or, you know, 4 if you've got just a little bit here and there. So you're really only going to have anywhere from 5 to maybe 8 models at the most if you're very armature heavy.
And the armatures come in 2 packs.
Yes,
Yeah.
they do.
So keep in mind, while yes, the price tag can seem a little high, and that goes into the sticker shock we've spoken of previously, you're only going to need a few of these guys to fill out your army.
And boom, your army's done.
And, for instance, I wrote a Sisters of Battle list recently that I rather like, and I have been thinking about collecting, and an Imperial Knight army would be cheaper than this Sisters of Battle list I was looking at.
Actually, it would. That was funny.
It would, and so it can be a bit of a shock, but all the armies tend to equal out in the end. There's a few armies that kind of cost a little bit more just because you need to collect more miniatures. But, some of the Horde armies such as Orcs, Imperial Guard, Tyranids, if you're doing a lot of guys, can be a little bit more, but for the most part, most of the armies do equal out pretty well.
Yeah, but don't show up to a Crusade game and say, "Here's my Crusade force. It's one Imperial Knight." Friends are not going to like you for that one.
You're not going to be part of that Crusade very long.
No.
Yeah, the Crusade is take down the Knight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have finished going over all the Imperial factions. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
No.
No, I think we covered them all pretty well. Hopefully you guys gained some information you didn't have, and we cleared up some of your more basic questions for you.
Well, that's been our series for the Imperial factions. We'll be back next week with further factions. We're going to cover Chaos armies and Xenos armies as well. Thank you for joining us on the Armchair Generals. You guys have yourselves a great day.
And remember, Ave Dominus Nox.